Okay, here.
It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Good morning, everyone. Blake Sloan here. Brand new week, awesome show. Got tons of great stuff, all kind of real estate news all over the place. And we'll just talk about the brand new market numbers for anybody that missed last week's show. Very, very interesting. Some are in decline in sales, also decline in prices. I'll look into those. We'll also dig into the week versus week sales, where we've been tracking that for a while, and they declined significantly last week. Really, because we had big news interest rates. They shot back up big time. The good news is they dropped back down a little bit towards the end of the week, which is awesome. And we'll kind of look at that. Also, this is interesting national news that came out. Zillow says housing prices dropped for the first time in a decade. Obviously, it's a national kind of number they're looking at, but we're seeing similar numbers here on pace. We'll talk about what we're seeing. I like to see a little bit more of a normalization. We'll talk about the question I'm getting here for the most, like what's going on, what's going to happen. And, I do think that Myrtle Beach is very, very, very healthy compared to a lot of places, just because we're still seeing so much migration, also very low inventory. And we're seeing more of a normalization in the market, which is important because we're still seeing prices in some areas and types do very, very, very well. So we'll talk about, if we have time, kind of what that recession means for the housing market. We've had some of that on the overall plan for the past few weeks in the show, just have not had time to get to. We briefly talked last week about the term "sell my house" up 144%. We'll talk about what that means, and also just look at kind of what's going on overall. One thing we'll talk about, just, and I kind of mention this every week, is just the importance of real estate agents and realtors, and who you choose. But we'll talk about this data. National Association of Realtors has 1.6 million members out there as the end of June. So basically the first half of the year. As of June 30th, 1.3 million of those have only sold 3 homes or less. 3 homes or less for 1.3 million out of 1.6 million, which is basically means 8% have sold more than 3 homes, basically 4 houses, more than 4 houses so far in the first 6 months of the year, which is crazy. So that's what this show's built on. We'll talk about that. We have some amazing, amazing success stories. Our team's absolutely crushing it as well. Our team's also hiring. We're in a growth mode. Looking in the next 12 months to add 100 agents to our team to really kind of add that top talent. We're seeing a lot of people out there been reaching out to us. We'll talk about that in this show. We're also offering a overall scholarship where I pay for your real estate school, pay for your training, all that stuff. And it's worked very, very, very well for a few people. So we'll get to all that and a lot of great stuff in today's show. Really quick, if you've been listening for a while, you want to go back, you can always go back and check these shows out. We actually go to podcasts with them. So you can go to your favorite podcast source, search Blake Sloan Real Estate. We have this on major podcast portals. Also, we stream this on YouTube, on Facebook, on mine. You can follow me personally if you want to. Also under Sloan Realty Group. And we're also on YouTube. So you can go back and listen to these, share them with your family members and friends or anybody that may just want to stay on top of the market. We have one goal for you here on this show, and that's just to educate you on what's going on in the market, keep you up to date so you can make really good decisions. For most people, their largest asset, which is real estate. So quick break, right back in a second.
All right, a lot of stuff to get to. If you just tuned in for the very first time and you're not sure who you're listening to or what you're listening to, it's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show hosted by, of course, Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan has been called the Real Estate Whiz Kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, and other national publications. You may be seeing him on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Friends, the morning show. You've heard the personal endorsements here by Sean Hannity, also Barbara Corcoran, Gary LaWatts. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now, that's one thing. But the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and that's the whole DNA why we do the show. And I mentioned, this, anybody's listened to the show for a while, I say it every week because I made a promise to myself. I've been to this show almost 12 years, I think now, maybe more, that I would talk about this because I see so many problems and headaches, and they all come down to this same exact thing. It doesn't matter how fluent they are, how many properties they sold. If they listen for a long time, they still make the same mistake over and over and over and over again. And it's very harmful. It costs them tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of pain and heartache in many cases. But it comes down to the decision they're making in terms of the real estate agent. The mistake they make is thinking that all real estate agents are the same, and it could not be any further from the truth. Just like any doctor, any lawyer, right? You're charged with a crime you did not commit. The last thing you want is a part-time attorney who just tried a few cases, but your friend recommended him. Or your friend who just became an attorney and hasn't really tried any cases yet. But for some reason, people do not demand that same level of excellence when it comes to their largest asset, which is why you see so many horror stories. And back to that number I was talking about a minute ago, National Association of Realtors, 1.6 million members as of June 30th, right? As of June 30th, 1.3 of those sold 3 homes or less. I mean, that's just unbelievable to look at and understand. I see it here. We talk about that. The average agent or marketplace sells roughly 4 homes a year, an entire year. So if I'm doing that, just think about that logically of like, how good is that person going to be if they're selling 4 homes a year? Do they really understand the ins and outs of marketing? Here's the deal. I can tell you one thing. They aren't doing any marketing. They sell 4 houses a year because there's not any money to eat with, much less spending marketing dollars, right? And so you have to understand, if I'm getting to this point where I want exposure and an expert and somebody who understands what they do, it's a big difference. My team and I sell a house every 12 hours. So 788 properties last year. You think that we understand the ins and outs. And here's the deal. We just see things that people don't see when you're only doing a few transactions. I find that many agents that we deal with and talk to, and they're selling high-end houses, they can hardly fill out a contract. I think a lot of brokerages and business models are all different. Business has changed a lot lately to a lot of internet type companies and things like that, where they don't even have a physical broker they're seeing every day. So they're trying to figure out contracts on their own, trying to write these things. Half the contracts we get from other companies and other agents that aren't that experienced don't even have them filled out correctly. But that person is representing your largest asset. And so the reason I share that is, here's the deal. The single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller comes down to one thing only. That thing is the agent that you choose, period, right? Not the wall color, not the grass. It comes down to the agent you choose and how they actually execute from A to Z. And most people don't realize that when you're selling a property, 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one of those is handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. Anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point. And that could be anything from price strategy. Does your agent answer the telephone? If they do answer the telephone, right, do they understand the information about the property, or they can be able to sell that person the property, or to just go to some person who is an administrative person at the front desk who doesn't care if your property sells or not, right? All these things from the home inspection negotiation. We just had an example. Somebody was asking for $60,000 off the price. After a home inspection, we were able to get the entire job done, finished for less than $5,000. Right. So these are all these things that come down to it. Most of the time, it comes down to the marketing. Most agents do the 3 Ps. And when they promise the world to get the listings, tell you anything and everything that they want you to think to get the listing. Right. Usually that they're number one. And the second thing to do is put it into MLS. And 3, they pray that someone else brings a buyer. And so that's one of those things that, you want to make sure that you have a lot more than that. And usually they're down the street trying to get the next listing, because if they're selling 3 or 4 a year, they're just trying to put food on the table. And there's not going to be a whole lot of money from a business model standpoint to put out there in lots of marketing, more so than just some photos in the MLS and maybe a for sale sign if your place, really allows that. And so here's the deal. I said, look, there's got to be a better way. I looked at what people did outside of real estate and said, look, how do we take what real actual businesses do and model that and bring that to the world of real estate? Because when I got in, it was the same thing. I was at a big box brokerage, and there was 200 plus of us, and I didn't care about them, and they didn't care about me. They were even trying to steal my leads when I'd be on the phone. I remember they'd get my number and call my people, right? They were just dog eat dog, all these agents under the same umbrella, but really we weren't, because we were competing against each other, and we didn't really care if that person made it or failed, or they didn't care about me either. And so the reality is that old school model doesn't work. That's an old school 8-track tape. And so I said, how do we reimagine this and make this look different? And so we sought out to shift the business model and reverse engineer every single part of the home selling process from A to Z. And that's how we know it's 118. And what we did is went to work and create a system that creates maximum leverage at every single point. And you stack those dominoes up. So you create small leverage at point 1, small leverage at point 2. When you add those up over time, what it does is it creates a massive gap from us and everyone else, and it gives you, the seller, a massive competitive advantage. And that system's called the guaranteed sold system. Only proven system sells twice as fast and for up to 20% more money than traditional methods, and it works very, very, very well. On the flip side, there's very, very different variables, but they're very similar in some ways. And if each one's handled correctly, it saves you money. Handled incorrectly, it costs you money. And so we had said, hey, how do we do a same type system there for buyers that give them a huge competitive advantage? So we designed this thing called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. It gets you priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers. Most importantly, though, the best negotiation and purchase price, as well as home inspection, to ultimately get you that closing table successfully, so that you had the advantage in the process. And so both those designed to do that one thing. Make sure when you're thinking about that, understand that if you take anything from this show, is do not think that agents are all the same. If you look at numbers, it's always the 80-20 rule. Within that 80-20 rule, there's a top 20% of the top 20. Those are the ones that do the most and are the best. And you want somebody like that who understands the ins and outs, the small nuances that make or break a home sale, because it's like a marathon. It's a longer sales cycle than anything else. It takes a while. There's so many things that can happen or not happen that make or break the home sale, and redesign really these things called systems and processes, as well as a team. And so now what we have is a team of specialists who each person specializes in that part of the home selling process, and they make sure they execute the highest level. And so we make sure we do that A to Z. You come out on top, and that's how we get you your home sold faster and for more money. If you want to know more about that, reach out to me. Call me 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com anytime. Be right back in a second.
Here with my trusted friend in the real estate market, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If I were listing a home today, what advice would you give me?
The advice that I give you today was you have to find an agent with a proven marketing plan that can get you the exposure you need to get top dollar and record numbers in today's marketplace. Most agents just put MLS and hopes one else brings a buyer. Meanwhile, you need somebody who spends money and gets the traction and traffic that you deserve.
And how would that impact my bottom line? That's what matters.
That massively impacts your bottom line because it brings more traffic, it brings more buyers, it creates bidding wars, but more importantly, it brings in the traction of buyers from out of town who see our value and are willing to come in and pay more money and top dollar for your property here along the Grand Strand.
All right, as always, thanks for the insight. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at BlakeSloan.com. That's BlakeSloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corbett. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options to home sales, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, you can agree to sell it by a certain date, take cash for your home, or even rent.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time?
Use our proven marketing plan to sell it for the highest price.
Work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. And that's exactly what Sean Haney was talking about there, is that you got to make sure that you have the right exposure in today's market. Because here's the deal. The market is shifting, right? Shifted many places across the country. It's shifting here. We've seen sales decline, prices decline significantly. And back to what you mentioned earlier, the average agent or marketplace selling 4 homes a year, there's not any money to market with. And so you cannot just get away with taking some photos on a cell phone or even getting, a photographer to help take some photos and just put it on MLS and hope that it sells. There has to be some type of marketing exposure, buyers, and we'll talk about that, but it comes down to business model. It makes a massive, massive difference. But looking at the shift that we talked about, I'll do 2 things, right? I'm going to talk about week versus week because I think that's the most accurate data. We look at what happens in real time, how many properties are going under contract, and that's going to tell us what's going to sell in about 30 to 60 days, right? I look at that as, I always call it the windshield numbers. That's what's happening in front of us. If you look in the rear view mirror, we'll talk about those, and that's what's closed. Next week, on next week's show, we'll have the micro market. That data is just not out and compiled yet, but it will be out by next week. And so we'll also dig into really quick the macro market here today. So looking at the MLS properties under contract. If you look at last week's show, I try this every week, there were 606 properties went under contract for $228,638,000, which is awesome, right? So that's anything over 200 million is an awesome, awesome week of 7 days. Been tracking that all the way since the first lockdown in COVID. It got down to 300 something properties that were selling during the lockdown, and it jumped back up. And that's all over the entire marketplace here, from Southern North Carolina to Georgetown to Andrews, Inland, all the way to Marion, Mullins. So that's what that is. 606 under contract in the last 7 days. Right now, though, in Horry County, there's 834 active properties last week. If you look at this week, 493 under contract for 177 million. So significant decline. They're about $50 million less in real estate sold this 7 days compared to the previous 7 days. Now, what's the difference? Well, if you remember, interest rates jumped up massively, up to 6.23%. And that made a lot of buyers pump the brakes and kind of back off. And so that's why I like to watch real time what's going on, because now I can make a big difference. And so right now, the good news is there's more properties for sale. There's 849 active homes available in Horry County. If you go back just about 18 weeks ago, it was in the 300s. So a big increase in inventory. So if you see sales declining, inventories going up, you're going to see prices will soften a little bit as well. Here's a big difference too. So last week there was 15 properties over $1 million that went under contract. This week, only 11 properties over $1 million went under contract. Last week, 96 properties over 500,000. This week, 83 properties over 500,000. So you can just see it's just really a focus of interest rates going up. Less buyers can buy. Buyers can afford less amounts because obviously as rates go up, it costs them in terms of purchasing power. And so that's something we'll keep watching. I do think we'll probably see it bounce back up a little bit. As the good news is rates have dropped back down. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But if you go back to about 15 weeks ago, I guess it was 690 under contract for $215 million. And there's only 382 active properties. And so one of the biggest weeks we've had was the last week's show, which is 2 weeks ago, at 606 under contract for $228 million. So we'll keep watching that and see. Overall, you are seeing it soften a little bit as rates continue to go up, just because it prices many buyers out of that. We have a lot of buyers who've been searching for a few years now, waiting for prices to decline, and they're getting priced out of the market. And many of those are having to look in other places now. And some are having to lessen the amount of property price they're looking at. So keep that in mind. If you're thinking about selling, it's still a great time because we're into that fall market. We're seeing a big influx of money. There is a very, very good fall market here where people who've been kind of sitting on the sidelines watching with lots of money, resources, who don't like dealing with the large crowds and they want a little more mild weather, they come in here and they buy. And we've done that multiple times. Recently, we just closed on a $1 million property this week with Scott and Amanda on my team. We had the listing and had been under contract for it, fell through after an inspection issue. We came in. Amanda had a great investor from up north. They put under contract, closed in less than 2 weeks at $1 million second row right in Myrtle Beach. And so that's another example where we bring the buyer to the seller. We match it up. It works very, very well for our clients. So looking at the overall MLS numbers really quick, we'll hit those. Looking at single-family resale homes, sales, if you look versus last year, down 2.3%. It's recovered a little bit as the data has gotten entered through the month. 974 overall closed sales in the month of August versus if you go last year to August, it was 997. So a little bit decline there. Not too bad though overall. If you look at prices though, median price is up year versus year, up 15.3% at 369,000. We did peak out this year though in price in May. So May was at 375 and it's declined slightly in the past couple months. It bumped up between June and July and then back down in August down to 369. Also, you go to overall average price, it's a little more reactive for sure. It's up 9.7% from the same time last year at $424,190. And it peaked out this year at May. So in May this year, it was at $449,715. Right now, we're down to $424,190. So you see significant decline there in the past few months as prices have bumped around a little bit. One of the things that's obviously been kind of, I guess, helping cause that, and I talked about this a few months ago, is inventory. Inventory is up 42.2%. So right now we're at 2.4 months of inventory, which is the highest it's been in a very long time. The last time we were at 2.4 months was December 2020. And so that's just a big jump there where it really was down to 0.9 months in early 2022 between January, February, March, and it's slowly gone up as obviously less buyers have been in, more sellers have been kind of taking advantage of this overall peak, so to speak, and getting their property sold. So 41.2% increase in the amount of overall inventory. If you look at showings per listing, which is the amount of buyers looking at listings, it's down 20% from the same month last year. So right now we're averaging 4.8 showings per listing. It peaked out this year in March at 6.9. And so significant climb, but you're looking at 20% less buyers, inventory is up 40%. You're going to see prices soften a little bit, but I do think that overall we're going to see prices hold pretty well. I think you'll see them, like I mentioned, normalize. We've seen some numbers in places that are just unfathomable to me. I've been in the business almost 20 years, grew up in the business, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma, and we've selling stuff that I've never even thought possible. We sold one this week, put under contract in Aner. It was with a different agent before us. We took it over, same exact price, launched our marketing on it. It's just a 3-bedroom new construction house. It doesn't have a whole lot of land, right under 400,000 under contract within 2 days. And so that's just things that you usually didn't see unless a property out there had land with it. And you're just seeing there's just such a massive influx of buyers coming from other parts of the country, and inventory is still very, very low. And I'll talk a little bit later on in this show why we're seeing that, because there's a lot of sellers who are locked in very, very low in terms of interest rates. And so they're staying put unless they really have to move or do anything, because if they buy something similar, the rate may be double. And so that's really keeping inventory off the market, so to speak. And also, we're just truly haven't fixed the overall problem of having a massive inventory shortage after the 2008 crisis. I mentioned this before. In 2008, we saw obviously the big crisis. We saw lots and lots of developers go under, pretty much all of them. That was except for a couple major ones. And what happened was there just wasn't a whole lot built from 2008 to 2012. And so that leads to a situation where population growth outgrew the amount of homes being built. And so now nationally we're at a 5 million unit home shortage. And so that's still kind of come into play, which I think is also helping protect prices. And as we're seeing the trend down a little bit, what's happening though, you're seeing more of a normalization, right? It's not selling within hours with 10 offers on it, which I knew previously that those numbers just weren't sustainable. So it's a little more of a healthier market now. We're seeing opportunities for buyers who could not really find something else before, or sellers who were locked in to where they were at because they wouldn't sell because they couldn't find anything to buy because inventory was so low, is now able to move laterally or up or down. So there is more kind of, I guess, loosening of people who were stuck in what they were doing. So that's very important to watch overall. Looking at that into condo sales really quick, for just condo sales for anybody that missed, they're down 19.3% from the same time last year. If you go back to August of last year, there's 719. August of this year, 580. So you can see that decline there. Overall, median price is up 32% from last year. They were seeing almost 50% gains year over year, previous months this year. So you're seeing that kind of, I guess, level off a little bit. Prices this year peaked in May for condos at 246. Right now we're down to 230. And you're seeing it bump around the graph just a little bit. Overall, an average price up 25.9% from last year at 265,409, but also down from the peak this year in May at $277,224. Now, if you look at that, it really coincides with when interest rates started going up. They started going up in March, but you got to think, though, a lot of those deals in March were already pending and locked in. And so what's happening is it takes 30 to 60 days to close. Guess what? The ones that were really under contract in early March started to close in April and May. And that's why you kind of saw that peak happen. And then rates started climbing even more. So that's really kind of good news where prices are still protected. I'll talk a little bit later in the show just how I think that we're pretty well insulated. We are seeing normalization, but there's still just a massive shortage of properties. We're still in a seller's market. Like I mentioned, overall supply is very low. Right now, it's only 1.9 months of inventory for condos. If you look at that, it's up 58% from last year, but we're still at 1.9 months. It's actually down from July. July was 2.0 months. It dropped back down to 1.9 months in August. And so you're seeing it bounce around there. That's still very, very, very low. And again, those are just right back to numbers that were in April 2021 and March 2021. We're still not really back to pre-COVID numbers in terms of inventory and what's happening. And so it's still protected overall. If you look at showings per listing, it's down 27.3% from buyers for condos. If you look at year versus year, averaging 4.0 showings per listing in the MLS. And so bottom line is, if you're thinking about selling, don't wait till winter. I would not wait till January, February. Again, I think that we're still pretty safe here just because there's a massive migration. Majority of the people we're seeing is a big influx of money from up north. We're highly effective at targeting them online because we know where they search. We target them with our ads and our advertising, and we're able to bring those to our properties, which is very helpful. So really quick at interest rates. Interest rates right now, if you look at last week's show, 6.21%. It was peaked out at 6.23 on last Friday. The good news is this week it's 6.01. It dropped back down this week, which is great. It even dropped back down on Thursday night into Friday. A 15-year fix right now, 5.29%, which is still pretty good. A 30-year jumbo loan right now, 5.08%, which is awesome. That's why we're seeing a lot of high-end properties right now move, where it's still affordable and it's actually cheaper than a 30-year fixed rate right now, which is awesome. A 5-year adjust rate mortgage, 5.96%. A 30-year FHA loan, 5.40%. And a 30-year VA loan is 5.45%. So I do suspect we'll see that number jump up in terms of properties under contract. Remember last week it was 493. I think you'll see that bump back over the 500s just because rates went back down and some of those buyers will pull that trigger, make offers. So if you want to know how to really break down, understand the data and what's going on with your house, just remember neighborhood by neighborhood makes a big difference, area, zip code. And so we can do a detailed micro market analysis for you and help make the best decision going forward. But thinking about selling, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. Be right back in a second.
WRNN listeners, Clay Travis here. As investors in real estate, Buck and I both know exactly what to look for to find the agent with the best tools and marketing to get the highest sales price possible for a home.
How are we looking?
Got about a little less than 3 minutes.
Dang. Okay.
Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If you need to sell a home and buy a new one, ask about his guarantee.
Get this, Blake guarantees to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it himself. And since you know when your current home will sell by and for how much, you can buy your next home without worrying about getting stuck with two mortgages.
There's simply no other agent in the market who has a guarantee that will line up against what Blake Sloan can offer you. So when you're looking to sell and buy, he is your guy. Read nearly 750 five-star reviews by Googling Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing. That's Sloan Realty Group.
And tune in to Blake's show Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 11:30 a.m.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Hot buyers alert. My team and I are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers in the Myrtle Beach Grand Strand area, from $250,000 to $4.3 million. If you're thinking about selling, please contact us immediately. 843-808-SOLD. That's 843-808-SOLD. One of the things we do that we like to do is I like to just put my money where my mouth is. Like I mentioned, the average agent here, less 8% sell 4 homes or more in the entire country. We sell one every 12 hours. We outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint, and probably spend 10x what most of them make on average, just in overall basic marketing from across the country. And so one thing we like to do every week is share our amount of leads that we have and what makes us different. You say, look, why should I call you versus anyone else? Well, here's why you should call me before anyone else. Right now, active buyers that I have on my website who are looking to buy something in Myrtle Beach with a username, password, account have 69,343 active home buyers. Again, 69,343 active home buyers from all over. Right now, Greensboro, North Carolina, Fairburn, Ohio, Thomasville, North Carolina, Birmingham, Alabama, Dearborn, Michigan. And so by us outspending the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint, I can get your house more exposure, and we can match up buyers to your property within days, within minutes. The same way we just did with that $1 million property I mentioned on Ocean Boulevard. We do the same exact thing every single day of the week, and we have 69,343 active buyers. And part of that is I'm still in an inventory shortage. I need you to call me so that we can match up and sell your property to our buyers that we have, that we've been working with for years and years in many cases, but we're constantly keeping that going versus the average agent just waits till they get a for sale sign and does some at that point. Really quick success story. Steve and Janet owned a home in Conway, as well as Surfside. They recently decided to sell their one in Conway because they no longer needed 2 houses so close to each other. Their biggest concerns were having a bunch of random people show up at their home, not knowing if they're qualified or even serious about buying. Thankfully, someone referred them to Blake Sloan and our team. We came in, shared with them exactly and get it sold quickly to qualified buyers that we've already vetted. I designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, virtual reality tour. Within 48 hours, had 5 offers in their home. They decided to go for an offer of $50,000 above asking price, much higher than anything else that's sold for in the area. And this is also in a declining market. This is last week overall. They're happy with that now, and they have $50,000 above asking price with 5 offers due to our system. And really quick, Eric owned a home in Myrtle's Inlet, got transferred to PA. Basically, couldn't buy there until he sold here, needed a certain amount of money, called us. We got way more than investors. He was blown away, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, had multiple traffic in there, had it under contract within 48 hours, and solid deal he can move to PA with. So finish up the show. Next week, we'll see you here. Call me, 843-808-SOLD, or BlakeSloan.com anytime. If we're short like that, let's just cut that last commercial next time. If we're that short on time, we'll just cut that last commercial next time. Just give that option if you don't mind. All right. That's all right. Thank you.
All right, sure.
No, I'm good this week. Thank you, though.